There are stories whispered through generations, stories that never make it into textbooks, headlines, or political debates. And yet, they shape the nation in ways we hardly notice. This is one of those stories. It begins not in a grand mansion or a boardroom full of powerful people, but in a small diner on the edge of a quiet American town. It begins with a single act of kindness, one so small, most would overlook it. But for one family, that moment became the spark that would eventually influence the lives of millions. Before this family was ever spoken about in hushed tones, before the world speculated about their influence, they were simply a mother, a father, and 3 children trying to survive. What nobody knew was that the family people would later call the quiet power started with nothing but heart, humility, and a belief that kindness could change a life. If you enjoy emotional, real-life inspired stories like this, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment below. Your support helps us grow and share more powerful stories on our channel, Storysphere, where every story is a reminder that kindness still matters. The story truly begins in 1964, during a harsh winter that swept across the country. Jobs were scarce, and the family, known back then simply as the Harpers, struggled to make ends meet. The father, Daniel Harper, worked night shifts at a local mill, while his wife, Margaret, cleaned houses during the day. Their oldest son, Samuel, was only 9, but he carried the weight of the family in his quiet, determined eyes. One night, as snow drifted across the road like slow-moving waves, young Samuel noticed an elderly man sitting alone outside the diner. His coat was thin, his hands trembling, and his eyes clouded with exhaustion. People walked by, pretending not to see him. Some were afraid to stop, others were simply too busy. But Samuel's heart pulled him toward the man that he tugged at his father's sleeve. "Dad, he's freezing. We should help him." Daniel looked over, hesitated, then nodded. Despite barely being able to afford dinner themselves, the Harpers invited the man inside. They ordered him a warm meal, hot coffee, and sat with him until he stopped shivering. His name was Henry Lawson, a retired teacher who had lost everything: his home, his savings, even his family. He had no one left. But that night, he found something he never expected: kindness. Henry would later say that the Harper family saved him twice, once from the cold, and once from the darkness he carried inside. What the Harpers didn't know was that Henry had once been a mentor to some of the brightest minds in the country. Former students of his had grown into influential leaders, creating foundations, businesses, and social programs. When Henry told them about the family who sheltered him without expecting anything in return, they were deeply moved. Quietly, without telling the Harpers, Henry wrote letters to these former students, sharing the story of the family who had restored his faith in humanity. Those letters sparked something bigger than anyone could have imagined. Within months, the mill where Daniel worked received anonymous funding that prevented dozens of layoffs. Margaret was offered a better-paying job at a community center. Local college programs suddenly had scholarships that matched exactly what the Harper children needed. None of it came with signatures or explanations, only opportunities. Years went on, and each member of the Harper family carried forward the same kindness they had shown that winter night. Samuel, inspired by Henry, went on to build community programs focused on education and compassion. His work quietly influenced policies across the country, helping children from low-income families find hope and direction. His siblings followed similar paths, one becoming a social worker, another launching a charitable foundation that grew far beyond their small town. People began to notice the pattern. Every time a positive change took root somewhere in America, whether it was a school receiving unexpected funding, a neighborhood revitalizing, or a struggling family getting a second chance, the thread somehow connected back to the Harper legacy. They weren't rich. They weren't famous. They didn't care about recognition. They believed in one simple truth: kindness creates ripples, and ripples can become waves. Over time, many began whispering about the secret family shaping America. But the truth was far less mysterious and far more beautiful. It wasn't about power. It wasn't about influence. It was about a single moment of compassion that continued to grow, touching more lives than the Harpers ever knew. And maybe that's the real power in this world, the power of small acts done with great love. The next time you see someone in need, remember the Harpers. Remember the night they gave up their dinner to save a stranger. Remember how one moment of kindness helps shape a nation, because kindness may not make headlines, but it changes hearts. And when enough hearts change, the world follows.